All right, fight fans, let's keep the heavyweight talk going with Mr. Matchroom himself. It's about that time. Eddie Hearn.
What's up, Eddie?
How we doing, guys?
Great.
Good, great, man. Thanks for joining us. Eddie, look, obviously going to get into this past weekend's heavyweight showdown between Andy Ruiz and Luis Ortiz and your opinion on that. But first, I'm jumping right into the Tyson Fury talk. He puts out a video sending an offer, supposedly, to Mr. Anthony Joshua, and a tweet. And Joshua responds, says he's not into that internet negotiating stuff.
For clout.
For clout, right. And if he's serious about it, he'll be ready for December. All right. How serious is Tyson Fury and that Frank Warren team?
I don't know. Look, I don't want to be too cynical, and I don't want people to think that I'm not exploring the option of this fight. AJ's made it very clear. He's all in for that fight. He has been for a long, long time. Since the Usyk fight, our plan was to fight in December, then fight in February or March, get active, knock out a few guys from the top 15. But if there's an opportunity to fight for the world heavyweight title again in what is the biggest fight in the sport, then absolutely he would consider that. At the same time, 2 weeks ago, Fury had retired for the third time. Then he was trying to fight Derek Chisora. Then he said he'll only come back for $500 million. Then he's fighting Alexander Usyk. Then he's so it's like, for me, what this looks like is an opportunity for Fury to say, well, I tried to fight AJ, I tried to fight this guy, and then fight a really poor opponent in December. But maybe that's the boxing cynic in me. What I can tell you is I've had conversations with George Warren from Queensberry Promotions, and I've said to him, we're more than happy to sit down, give us your offer, give us your date, give us your plan. And, again, I expect either a date that, maybe AJ can't make, maybe try and pull an earlier date, or some kind of lowball offer that obviously... Fury's outstanding for some reason if you actually analyse what he said recently, I don't know how anyone can actually take it too seriously, but people do. So I guess AJ's never really been one for talking, but I think the reason for his public messaging last night was just to say, guys, just so you know, I'm up for this fight. So don't try and sort of bluff the public and say, oh, well, we tried AJ, we tried this. So be fair, we remember the terms that you asked for when you weren't champion to fight Anthony Joshua. I'm presuming it's going to be similar terms. And then, the only thing that worries me is, I saw Fury's tweet this morning, which was like, the deal will be fair, champion in me against challenger in you, like as if to say, like, you guys know the industry enough to know what's coming, but we'll go through the process because genuinely he wants the fight. So we'll do everything we can to listen. I think the fight will happen. I've always said it at some point. Will it happen in December? In my opinion, probably not.
But this fight would have to happen in spite of everything that's been happening, obviously in the Middle East and all the money that they have, this fight would have to happen in Great Britain, no?
Well, it would. I mean, again, 3 weeks ago, Fury said he wants to fight Anthony Joshua for nothing. Yeah, free tickets, no pay-per-view, etc. A week later, he said he's only fighting for $500 million. Okay, so I don't really know what
that price tag went up real fast, man. That price tag went up.
All I'm saying is this is the biggest fight in boxing.
Right?
This fight is much bigger than Usyk against Fury. I know that's the undisputed heavyweight fight, but commercially, this fight is bigger. Okay, so obviously, my job is to make sure that the money's right, the deal's right, etc. But we're not even using that to say we don't want to have these conversations. I said to Fury's team, make us an offer. And then we'll put it to AJ and consider it. But, it's got to be real. Because what I don't want to do as well is derail the plans. The plans are AJ's fighting in December. And we're coming back and we're working our way back to the shot of the world heavyweight title. Now, if that comes unexpectedly in a fight of this magnitude, AJ will take it. But until we know the details, you said Tyson Fury has made an offer to Anthony Joshua. No, Tyson Fury put an Instagram video out and said, I am willing to give you an opportunity to fight for these titles here. So let's see the offer, let's see how real it is, and then we'll go from there.
You know, I guess Anthony Joshua is just destined to fight nothing but hard fights. And you don't get no soft touches, Anthony. Sorry. When you spoke to George, you said you spoke to George Warren. Did you get the feeling that Tyson is kind of like going rogue and doing all of this posting and throwing offers out there without discussing with his team? Or
maybe. I mean, he's done that his whole career, but he's very good at getting stuff out there and trying to convince people that he's doing this and he's trying to do that. And everybody would want to make Fury against AJ. Matchroom, AJ, Fury, Queensbury, because it's a huge fight. To turn it around in what would be 14, 15 weeks, coming off an Usyk defeat, is quite difficult. And maybe they thought we'd just say no. But we're not saying no. We're saying yes, subject to the plans and the deal and an actual offer. But like when I spoke to AJ about it, there was no hesitation from him. And to be honest with you, like the right thing to do for AJ's career now is to get active and to go through and beat some of these top 15 guys. He would much rather go straight back into a massive fight.
But let me ask you something, Eddie. Do you think that Joshua fighting Deontay Wilder is a bigger fight than Joshua fighting Fury? What do you think?
No. I mean, look.
Because if Joshua fighting, regardless, you have the whole UK.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, we know Joshua's just coming off a defeat.
Yeah.
Whether he's number 1 draw in boxing, whether he's number 2 or 3 draw in boxing, whatever it is, he's massive. Now, the Wilder fight is a huge fight, but the Fury fight, I mean, I'm a bit biased because obviously I'm living in a country where literally I get stopped every footstep asking me when Fury's going to fight AJ.
I think those same people will watch Joshua no matter who he fights. So if you get America involved, I think it becomes a worldwide
huge fight. But AJ Wilder, massive fight. AJ Dillian White, big fight in the UK. There's some massive fights to be made. And our plan was to make all those fights from spring, summer next year. But if we have to move forward and forget about the interim fights, he'll do it. Josh has proved time and time again. Don't forget, we signed to fight Tyson Fury. They pulled out of the fight because of the arbitration with Wilder.
Right.
So it's not like we haven't been here before. We've agreed a deal before. He's willing to do it again. And he wants that fight more than anything. But we just got to see if it's bluster or, if they come with some deal of, trying to convince the public that AJ turned down the opportunity, then we'll see. But again, we were negotiating this deal when Fury didn't have a belt.
Yes.
And AJ was the champion.
Yes.
Okay, and Fury was the challenger. And I remember, I've got it in writing actually, of what he wanted for that fight in terms of splits and stuff like that. So, it should be pretty straightforward to come back with their offer.
Barack, you mentioned a little while ago that there's no soft touches on AJ's resume. And to your point, we just watched Luis Ortiz fight Andy Ruiz this past weekend. And yeah, he was dropped a couple of times, but showed resiliency and how great of a fighter he is. And I remember once upon a time, Eddie, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you guys made an offer to Luis Ortiz before AJ signed with Andy Ruiz after the big baby nonsense. So you were willing to fight one of the most dangerous fighters.
I think it was for 6 million or 7 million. Like we that was the fight we wanted at Madison Square Garden.
Right, which was a more dangerous fight. And by the way,
people talk about Andy Ruiz. Again, people look at the physique of Andy Ruiz and go, "Oh, I can't believe Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz." He had a fight that could have gone either way against Joseph Parker in New Zealand. He's just beaten Luis Ortiz, right? Who is 100% a top 10 guy. Right. Like Andy Ruiz is a good fighter.
Very good.
We could have fought Trevor Bryan that night at Madison Square Garden. And Don King always reminds me, "You're an idiot. You should have fought Trevor Bryan." And I say,
that's like dissing his fighter. That's like Don King dissing his fighter. Like my fighter pretty much.
What do you want to fight Andy Ruiz for? He looks terrible and he's good. That's like the conversation. It's like, that's what we want. We come into Madison Square Garden. We want to give the fans a real fight, and AJ doesn't want to go over and get criticised for fighting a nobody.
Right.
And
with all that being
that's
said,
how it's always been.
Who are the, I guess, few guys in your head that's on that list, top 15 guys that if the Fury fight doesn't happen, do you finally want to give AJ, and I don't want to say soft touches, but some,
He wouldn't want a soft touch. Like I think that's going to work against him. A real look. It's a top 15 guy. I mean, you can pull them out of the rankings yourself. Once I start mentioning names, then the price goes up. So it's like the last thing that AJ wants is a gimmick fight, and I don't think we're not interested in gimme fights. There's got to be an element of risk. There's got to be an element of risk, and there's
name me somebody.
Look at the top 15. I don't know.
You did kind of throw in Dillian White there a little bit.
Dillian White is not a fight for December, but it's a fight for March and the summer, 100%. It's a big stadium fight in the UK. You know, I mean, you've got Filip Hrgović just won. You know, I think it was a poor performance from him. Zile looked good. Otto Warlin had a very close fight with Tyson Fury. Like, I don't know. I mean,
can I throw something crazy out there? Remember the rumors before the Andy Ruiz fight that his sparring partner Joey, I never know how to pronounce this guy's last name. Right. Well, he just had a fight against a fighter by the name of Mike Marshall, and he won. And maybe we could put those rumors to bed.
Correct. Are you suggesting that AJ fights Joey Daweko? I mean, you know, you don't care. I'm the one who's got to take the flak.
He said, "You don't care, bro."
But Eddie, so
it's never going to come back. It's never going to come back to me. So
no, that's why you say it. I'm gonna make the Joey Daweko fight and say Barack said it was fine.
Eddie, you don't get flack for look. We love Dillian over here, but he was just knocked out by Tyson Fury. So you won't get any heat for making that fight next for AJ to do his next fight.
Dillian's a very good fighter. He's a dangerous fighter.
I know that, but
he's inactive as well. I want to give Dillian White a fight in November, and then I would like to make the AJ fight. You know, subject to the Tyson Fury stuff, because these guys have to get active. You know, I was talking to Dillian yesterday. He fought in March 2021, and then his next fight was in April 2022. Like, these guys, AJ the same. They've been having one fight a year because of COVID, because of rematches, because of mandatories. I want to get him active. Trust me, an AJ that's fighting every 3 months is going to be a tough guy to beat once that confidence is going, once the belief in his training team is going. And like I said, originally the plan was December and February and March, and that could be Dillian White, and then go into a Fury or a Wilder fight, all those guys. But, you know, having spoke to AJ last night, the message was clear. If he's serious, let's do it.
All right. I like that. Look, Estrada gets the W. We're going to get the trilogy, Chocolatito versus Estrada. Based on what you saw this past weekend with Estrada, Eddie, me personally, I thought Chocolatito won the last one. Does he have what it takes to beat the Chocolatito as of late? Because he's been looking.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I thought Chocolatito edged that second fight. It was an unbelievable fight to watch live, and the third fight can only be thrilling. But Chocolatito somehow is going through the gears and just getting better and better. You know, and it's remarkable to watch. I think Cortez was brilliant on Saturday in that fight, but also it's very difficult going into a fight where it's like, this is kind of like a warm-up fight, and you know that at the end of the fight, we're announcing a Chocolatito fight if you win. It's hard to put in your best performances in those kind of fights, but Estrada got the win, and I think Chocolatito is the favourite going into the rematch December 3rd. And then I think the winner should fight Jesse Rodriguez in an unbelievable fight. You know, one of the biggest fights out there in the sport. And can I just say as well, you know, I feel like because of what we do and because of the schedule that DAZN are putting together, that, you know, sometimes we don't get the credit for the fights or the schedules, you know. But when you actually break it down and you say, you know, coming off the back of AJ against Usyk, Canelo against Triple G, Ben against Eubank, even Wood against Lara, you know, a week before, Chocolatito against Estrada, you know, just done Canelo Bivol against Ramirez, you know, Katie Taylor against Serrano that we've done. Like, guys, come on. Like, we are putting on the biggest nights and fights globally in the sport.
Oh, hands down.
No question about
it. You know what?
Hands down.
It's not even, you don't really need the pat on the back, but every now and again, it's nice. Maybe that's what happens when you pack up your bags and you retire. But it frustrates me sometimes that I look at this schedule and I think, who else is doing that? You know, who else is putting these kind of fights on, these nights on, these fanfares globally, like selling out arenas, the production, everything. It's on another level.
It has to be broken down the way you just did, because sometimes you're so involved in it, even myself and Barack, that you don't realize it. But the way you just laid it out, you say to yourself, there's nobody even close to put that many big fights. Now, as far as Estrada Chocolatito, is there a location set or place?
Yeah, we're going to announce that. Looks like next week. It could be San Antonio. Jesse Rodriguez all being well, next week in Vegas, will also be on the co-main for that card as well.
Yeah, he's
so
a phenomenal talent.
Yeah, and he's,
talent.
I think he's, I mean, listen, it's difficult because Chocolatito is with us and with Tekken, Mr. Honda, and so is Jesse Rodriguez. He's not really a fan of putting his guys together sometimes, but Chocolatito against Jesse Rodriguez is just, I mean, you're talking about, for me as a fight fan, probably one of the best fights in the sport.
Absolutely.
But we'll see. He's got to beat Estrada first. Maybe he fights Estrada, and we can't wait.
Yeah.
You know how I look at this thing? I look at it like these networks are all fighters, and DAZN just happens to be the most active fighter, and they're the champs right now. But speaking about scheduling, September 10th is a huge fight in the UK, and it's Savannah Marshall and Clarissa Shields. Do you think that that's going to be able to match that epic event, that epic night on April 30th in Madison Square Garden with Serrano and Katie Taylor? You think it'll be able to match that?
It's a great fight. I mean, look, commercially, and I'm not taking shots at anyone because it's a brilliant fight, but it's just the lower tier at the O2. They've probably sold 5,000-6,000 tickets. You're talking versus
it's not sold out?
No, they've not even opened the top tier. So, but it's a great fight. But when you try and compare the two commercially, I'm giving you an example of one fight that sells out Madison Square Garden and 19,000 tickets, and another one that doesn't. But there's great spice in the fight. I'm excited for it. I mean, we have Alicia going against Michaela Meyer. It's a great card as well. I'll be there to watch Alicia. And I'm excited to see if she can come through that fight and become unified champion. But it is a really, really good fight, and I'm interested to see. I've always felt like Savannah would win that fight. Everyone that knows boxing keeps telling me the opposite.
I think in your heart, I think this is kind of like Lomachenko versus Luke Campbell. Like you in your heart, you want Luke Campbell, and you know that he's definitely ready for the fight, but you're looking at somebody who's just been very dominant. Yeah, and it's hard to say.
With the Luke Campbell fight is Savannah Marshall can really punch, right? Like in terms of female boxing, she can really punch. So Luke Campbell was always reliant upon skill to beat Lomachenko, which is very difficult to do, but he's also very skillful. I think that Savannah Marshall can only rely on power in this fight, but at least she has the power to hurt Clarissa Shields, because I believe she has the power to hurt anyone. But I've also got a feeling that Clarissa Shields might just school her. But that's why it's a great fight. I've no idea.
Yeah, I think the co-main is great as well. Hey, Eddie, real quick, look, there's been rumors out there. I don't know if you have any inside info, but Gervonta Davis, he's been putting out tweets about December, and so has Ryan Garcia. Do you think there's any truth to what people are saying, that this fight is going to be made in December, Tank versus Ryan Garcia?
I don't know. I think I was with Eric Gomez in Abu Dhabi for the press conference. I brief chat with him. I didn't know what to take from that. I don't think he was overly confident that fight would get made, but it's over to Golden Boy and PBC. It's a huge fight. It's a huge fight, and it goes back to the whole. It's almost like the industry versus DAZN. Like the zone of the disruptors. It's like, why wouldn't you just do Tank against Ryan Garcia on Showtime pay-per-view or PBC pay-per-view or whatever it's going to be, and on the DAZN pay-per-view? You let the fighters have all the money and the gate, the promoters take their percentage, job done.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be that difficult, but it still comes down to, no, we don't want to, like I said, that's why it really lights the fire inside me, because it's not even really about just Eddie Hearn or Matchroom or DAZN, but collectively, they never want to let us in, and they feel like, if we bring them into that fight, it just gives them another little bit of momentum, and like, it's sad that that's how boxing works.
That's definitely how it is.
But it's nothing new.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd do the same if I was them. So I'm not even criticising those guys, and this fight has nothing to do with me anyway. I'm just, as an outsider, I'm just looking at it and saying, I'm talking as a fan.
But I'm saying, as a promoter, you've worked with other networks. You've been willing to let your guys go over and fight on other networks. So
It's really going to come down to the fighters at the end of the day who have to stand up and say, you know, it's even like this Fury AJ stuff. At the end of the day, I'd quite like AJ to go out and knock out a few people and, you know, get moving again. But when AJ says to me, listen, if this fight's for real, I want it. So Tank has really got to stand up to these guys and say, no, you make the Ryan Garcia fight in December. It's your job. Do it. You know?
I don't necessarily hear from all of the other promoters that the fighters are the boss. I remember one time I asked Bob Arum that, and I couldn't get a similar sentiment from him.
Oh, because how can we be the boss? Like, at the end of the day, yeah, a lot of the time we put the money up, but we're not getting in there and fighting. You know, these guys are putting themselves on the line for our entertainment. Our work, it doesn't matter whether there's a debutant who's in a 4-round fight. He or she is my boss.
Right.
But as the fighter gets bigger, they have more say in their career. And Anthony Joshua will tell me what he wants to do. He'll take my advice, but he'll tell me what he wants to do. Katie Taylor and team will tell me what they want to do.
Right.
Canelo Alvarez will tell me what to do. Yeah, they want to know what the options are and what our thoughts are, but they're the decision makers. They're the bosses. And Tank Davis is the boss.
Absolutely. Well, to switch it up just a little bit, man, I just wanted to mention we lost a great one. His name is Ernie Shavers, and he was never a champion in the heavyweight division, but he became a very, very famous fighter. And probably most people, especially casual fans, don't know that he wasn't a champion, but he was that famous because of his power. Do you know, can you relate to anybody in the British history in boxing that's like that, never won a strap, but very, very famous?
I mean, you've always got guys, you know, great fighters never to win a world title. There's a lot of them in different territories around. Yeah. You know, and it's difficult when a fighter's fighting, you know, to put a Dillian White at the moment in the same league as an Ernie Shavers. But, you know, he's another guy that's been in a lot of big UK fights, huge name, entertained fight fans. As of yet, has never won a world heavyweight title. But, you know, to put him in the same breath with Ernie Shavers at the moment is difficult.
At the moment.
Because of history and time.
Yes.
Also, we don't appreciate a lot of these fighters until they leave the sport. And you look back, and I always use Canelo Alvarez and AJ as examples for that. One day you're going to look back on these guys and go, wow, they were game changers for the sport. Now, when you talk about someone like Ernie Shavers, it's interesting because the day before he passed away, it was crazy. I was at a dinner in Abu Dhabi and his name came up. Wow. And there was a gentleman there who's a big boxing fan. And I said to him, I think the conversation was, who's the biggest puncher of all time? Yes. And he said Ernie Shavers. And I went away and I watched some of his stuff, and unbelievable. Like 2 days later, I saw the news that he'd passed away. Wow. And I started watching other content. People like Muhammad Ali talking about how strong and how hard Ernie Shavers was. He was his hardest puncher, right? Yeah. And it's only when you listen to those greats talking about someone like Ernie Shavers that you realise how good, and that legacy through those comments lives on. You know, I started going back 2 days ago, watching a couple of Ernie Shavers fights, and I'll continue to do so to you know, understand well, not even the myth, but the legend of Ernie Shavers and
a legend that was never world champion. You mentioned Canelo real quick, Eddie. Once upon a time, you said he really wants the Bivol rematch no matter what. He recently put out, you know, was being interviewed, and he said, "Hey, listen, if he loses to Ramirez, I no longer want that fight." Wow. And he also went on to say that, and they asked him, do you want Zurdo if Zurdo beats Bivol? He said, right now, I represent Mexico. I don't want to fight any Mexican fighters. So he doesn't want Bivol if Bivol loses. Talk about that.
I'll talk about this. We better be focused on next week.
Damn right.
Because everything I'm seeing from Gennady Golovkin looks like a man possessed.
Yes.
Right? Up at 168 pounds. I'm telling you now, the benefits to Gennady Golovkin being up at 168 as opposed to shredding himself down for the 15th year of his career at 160, he looks like an absolute beast. He is coming with everything to beat Canelo next week. And Canelo better be ready. I know how hard Canelo's trained for this fight because he's coming off a defeat and he wants to win this fight bad and he wants to knock out Triple G. Next week in Las Vegas, you better get ready to see an all-out war between these two. The build-up's going to be epic. They're going to go at it all week. But I'm telling you now, when that bell rings at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, these two will not take a step back. They will go to absolute war in this trilogy. And this fight will not go 12 rounds. No way. No way this time. And you're going to see the best of the 3 fights. Forget about Bivol. Forget about Ramirez. All eyes on Las Vegas next week.
No
Let's
doubt
go.
about that. There you have it. Eddie Hearn.